My Lords, it's a privilege to speak after the noble Baroness. I wondered how it was I might be find a way of defending this bill in what I suspected would be a hostile environment, but my anxiety was alleviated when I heard the introductory speech of my noble friend Lord Wolfson of Tredegar, who I thought made a very compelling case for the broad principles on which this bill rests, and I was wholly with him on that. The starting principle of international law, actually, is that no country is under an obligation to grant admission to any non-national at all. That obligation is moderated, admittedly, by international treaty conventions that we have entered into, and I was glad to hear my noble friend say that we were going to be adhering to the Convention on Refugees. But it doesn't, of course, mean that all irregular arrivals are refugees, and those who are not should be removed. The Right Reverend Prelate, the Lord Bishop of Durham, the noble Lord Griffiths of Bury Park, various other noble lords have appealed to our common humanity as the basis on which we should be constructing our immigration law. And while we all respect and acknowledge our obligations that arise from our common humanity, that, I think, is to get things the wrong way round, because we also have a moral obligation to our own people who live here, in part because we claim and exercise the exclusive right to act on their behalf in this area. And I regard that as a prior and balancing moral right. In fact, I would say that is the purpose of immigration law, that is, the protection of the stability and welfare of our own society, and that our obligations under common humanity are a constraint on how we implement that law, rather than confusing it with what the purpose of it is. But there is an area in this bill that does cause me deep concern, and that is those are the provisions allowing for the removal of British citizenship in even more administratively curtailed circumstances than exists at the moment. Now, various noble lords on Labour benches have objected to this, but I think we should note that it was a Labour government. I know the noble Lord Rosser made some wonderfully gave us some wonderfully distracting pointer to legislation from 1914. But it was actually a Labour government in the Nationality, Immigration and Asylum Act 2002 that for the first time introduced the power to deprive British citizens by birth or descent of their nationality. That had never, ever existed before. And, of course, once that, provided they had a second nationality that they might fall back on. And once that door was opened, once that principle was given up, then, of course, all this complaint about what are effectively subsequent tidying up exercises, in my view, is pure hypocrisy. My concern is different. It's because I actually object to the removal of the citizenship in any circumstances, because I have a more conservative, some might say hopelessly quixotic view of what nationality actually means and should mean for us. My conception of nationality, British nationality, is much more profound than a mere travel document. It is, or it should be, a permanent and reciprocal bond of loyalty on the one hand and protection on the other. It is not a driving licence to be taken away if you clock up the wrong number of points. It goes to your identity. When you lose your nationality, you don't just lose your identity papers, you lose your identity. It really isn't a driving licence or an administrative ticket. Now, that bond, I say this is quixotic, but that bond is a real and lived experience. When in the same piece of legislation in 2002, the Labour government introduced citizenship ceremonies, I thought they'd be rather tacky, un-British American sorts of things. But actually, when I saw people coming to my own town hall when I was a councillor, time and time again, and coming in a sort of a festive, family spirit, almost like they were coming to a wedding, I saw then how real that bond can be between citizen and nation. And that, my view, I think, my lords, is what I think a Conservative government should be building up. We shouldn't be pursuing and entrenching this cynical Labour ploy, especially following Brexit. We should be building up and strengthening the bond between citizen and nation, whereas it seems to me that this provision goes only to dissolve it further.